Hey guys, tonight we wander through a city that's struggling to breathe. It's July 1858. You're standing on a stone bridge over the River Thames, and you're already regretting that decision. The air clings to your face like a wet rag steeped in centuries of bad decisions. Heat radiates off the cobblestones, and something thick and invisible curls up from the river like a ghost that doesn't believe in bath time. This isn't just pollution. It's a wall of smell. It hits your nose, your throat, your dignity. You gag a little. You try not to make a scene. Everyone else is pretending this is fine. The man beside you pulls a scented handkerchief from his vest. A woman across the way dabs her temples with vinegar. Even the pigeons seem offended. Welcome to the Great Stink. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know your city and local time down in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand there, still blinking through the heat and the haze, and you realize this is the smell of an empire rotting from the inside. Below you, the Thames is less a river and more a moving soup of everything no one wants to talk about. Animal carcasses, household slop, industrial waste, and human. Let's call them contributions. The water barely moves, thick with the residue of millions. They said the summer of 1858 was going to be hot. They didn't mention that it would come with flavor. Your boots tap against the stones as you move away from the bridge. Every breath is a gamble. You try to remember a time when London didn't smell like death marinated in cabbage. And then it hits you. This is how it's always been. But now the sun's decided to turn up the volume. Heat waves are cruel. But in London, 1858, they're apocalyptic. Newspapers call it the Great Stink. The Times refuses to print exact descriptions, saying that the reality is too disgusting to print. You think back to that headline and realize, if they couldn't find the words, what are you doing here? All right, you're the curious type. You want to know how an entire capital city just forgot to invent plumbing that works. Across the river, Parliament tries to keep calm and carry on. They hang heavy curtains soaked in lime chloride to keep the stench from seeping into debates about empire and industry. Spoiler, it seeps anyway. Even the Thames fish are having none of it. You spot one floating belly up near the bank. It's not alone. This isn't just a bad smell. This is a crisis. The city's heart is poisoned, and the infection is spreading. But you don't leave. You keep walking, because part of you wants to understand how the most powerful city in the world came to this. How horse manure, factory runoff, and a refusal to admit anything was wrong ended up suffocating its streets. And the other part of you, well, that part just likes weird history before bed. Historians still argue whether this moment, this particular week of unbearable stink, was the final straw or just a well-timed excuse. But the fact is, for once, nobody could deny it. London was choking, and everyone knew the cause. But what's odd, and kind of hilarious if you squint, is that people didn't blame the sewage. They blamed the smell, not the filth in the river, the aroma of it. The popular theory at the time was miasma, the belief that bad air caused disease. The idea was that if you could smell it, it could kill you. And while they weren't entirely wrong, yes, breathing plague fumes probably isn't ideal, it meant that most solutions focused on masking odors instead of, stopping raw sewage from entering the water in the first place. So people burned incense. They sprinkled lime. They wore little bouquets of herbs tucked in their sleeves like 19th century body spray. And none of it helped. You pass a church, its stone facade streaked with soot. A boy runs past with a basket full of something he definitely shouldn't be carrying barehanded. He grins anyway. It's just life here. The sky is a pale, sulphurous yellow. Not dramatic like a thunderstorm, just wrong. And then you think about what lies beneath your boots, the sewers or what counts as sewers, and you start to feel like you're walking on a thin crust above a bubbling swamp. You are. There's a fun, read horrifying, statistic floating around from this time. The average Londoner shared their street with 2 horses, 30 rats, and 1 privy emptied into the Thames. Lovely, but here's the twist. This summer stench, it'll change everything. It will force the hand of government, inspire a new generation of engineers, and begin a transformation of public health so sweeping it could have only been born out of desperation. So yeah, tonight we start with your nose. But where we're going, well, you'll need more than a cloth and vinegar. You carry the stink with you. It's in your clothes, your hair, your soul. You've barely made it 5 blocks inland and already your eyes are watering. Not from sentiment, but from ammonia hanging heavy in the air like fog's angrier cousin. Your boots squelch in something that doesn't bear naming. And when you glance down a narrow alley, you catch sight of a bucket tipping over. Whatever was in it hits the cobbles with a slap. You don't ask. You keep walking. This is not the London of crisp morning carriages and lace-trimmed manners. This is the city's digestive tract, down where it rumbles and gurgles and occasionally explodes. Welcome to the belly of the beast. You've reached one of the poorer neighborhoods now, where the Thames is less a backdrop and more a lifestyle. Streets curve with the river's whims, houses lean with exhaustion, and walls are streaked with stains no one remembers making. Inside one crooked building, a family of 6 is eating bread as hard as tile. Behind them, a bucket sits in the corner, serving both as necessity and furniture. Chamber pot by night, stool by day. Luxury. Hardly, but it beats stepping outside. And here's a strange thing. No one really thinks this is unusual, because for most Londoners in 1858, this is simply how things work. Waste goes into the chamber pot. Chamber pot gets dumped into the gutter. Rain washes it away, or doesn't. It lingers, mixes with horse manure, and turns the cobblestones into a kind of grim stew. And here's the kicker. They built it this way. See, London grew fast. Too fast. By the mid-1800s, it was the largest city in the world. But with that growth came chaos. Housing sprang up like mushrooms after rain. Fast, cheap, and without any thought to plumbing, or health, or dignity. You pass a narrow street where laundry flaps from windows above, and raw waste drips from spouts below, clothes drying in the same air as human excrement. A kind of efficiency if you squint hard enough. And then, of course, there's the Thames, the city's lifeline, its heart, its dump. A historical fact for your sleepy mind. Before 1858, over 200,000 cesspools existed beneath London homes. When they overflowed, as they often did, people simply bailed them out and poured the contents into the nearest gutter, which led to the Thames, which was also the city's source of drinking water. Pause a moment and think about that. Same river, 2 purposes, no filter. Historians still argue whether this lack of sanitation came from ignorance, denial, or sheer logistical impossibility. Probably all 3. You reach the edge of a crowded court, a kind of courtyard, packed with people who have nowhere else to be. Children chase rats with sticks. A woman scrubs something in a bucket and pours the cloudy water onto the flagstones. You don't ask what she was cleaning. Somewhere in the crowd, someone coughs. Deep and wet. No one flinches. In this world, health is fragile. Illness is constant, and privacy is a luxury. People live cheek to jowl in tenements that share more than just walls. Diseases pass as easily as gossip. Maybe easier. But what's fascinating, what really gets your sleepy historian brain turning, is how normal this all seems to them. This is life. This is survival. No one's writing angry letters to the city council. They're too busy staying alive. You duck into a tiny shop, a tanner's maybe, and nearly pass out. The stench is its own species. Animal hides lie, and something worse. The man inside doesn't look up. He just keeps scraping, the rhythm as steady as breathing. And then, out on the street again, a quirky tidbit drifts your way. There's a rumor that some breweries in East London are using river water to make their beer. You laugh, or gag. It's hard to tell. But here's where things get more interesting. This neighborhood, this grime-slicked block is not unique. It's typical. This is London for most people in 1858. Not just the poor, not just the forgotten, but the vast, sweating majority. And the thing that ties them all together, the thread running through every block, every alley, every bucket, is the river. Everything ends in the Thames. You pause at a bend in the road. A man wheels a cart past, the wheels cutting two neat lines through the muck. In the cart, something wrapped in cloth. You try not to guess what, or who. Above, a rooftop cat watches you with the judgment only cats can muster. And you think this is where revolutions start. Not in the palaces, not in Parliament, but in these damp streets where people get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Of course, in 1858, no one's storming the gates just yet. But the smell has made it that far. The great stink doesn't care about wealth or rank. It snakes into homes both grand and grimy. And it's about to make everyone equal in suffering, if nothing else. You move through the city like a ghost no one sees, but you smell everything. And the closer you get to the heart of it, the worse it becomes. You pass another alley, narrower this time, almost intimate in a grimy kind of way. Someone's tried to grow herbs in a box outside a window, basil, maybe, or mint, is valiantly fighting the air, but the stench wins. Every time. Ahead of you, a woman leans from a window and tips a chamber pot's contents straight onto the cobblestones. It hits with a splatter that makes your stomach lurch. She doesn't look down, doesn't yell a warning. It's not rudeness, it's routine. Below, the runoff joins a stream of other unnameable fluids heading downhill. Toward the Thames, always. You follow it. London, for all its greatness, has no proper sewer system yet. Not really. The Romans had better plumbing 2,000 years ago, and while some clever folks tried, there were drains, a few covered channels. None of it could handle the tidal wave of waste produced by a growing city of over 2 million souls. So instead, the city adapted. In a warped kind of brilliance, households dug cesspools, brick-lined holes beneath the floor, designed to collect waste. But they overflowed, constantly, and when they did, someone had to deal with it. Enter the night soil men. Yes, that's their real title. They'd come after dark, armed with buckets and shovels, and dig out the waste. Often ankle-deep, waist-deep, sometimes more. They hauled it away to the edges of town, sold it as fertilizer, or just dumped it wherever no one would notice. Here's your quirky tidbit. Being a night soil man actually paid better than many factory jobs. Dirty, yes. Dangerous, absolutely. But profitable. Of course, you'd never shake the smell again. Not ever. Historians still argue whether these workers were unsung heroes or simply symptoms of a broken system. Either way, they were vital. Without them, London would have drowned in its own filth even faster. But even they couldn't keep up. You arrive in a square where something particularly noxious steams in a gutter. Two boys poke at it with sticks, daring each other to get closer. A dog trots by, sniffs once, and bolts. A horse-drawn cart struggles past, its wheels sinking into mud and worse. The driver coughs, spits, and mutters something about vinegar. You see him dab his nose with a cloth soaked in the stuff, one of the few defenses people have. That, or burning incense, or placing bunches of herbs on windowsills, as if lavender could stand up to what's coming off that river. And still people endure. Inside a nearby tenement, you peer through a cracked door. A family is eating dinner. Bread, again. Maybe stew. The smell is somehow both comforting and revolting, because you can't tell what's food and what's background. The mother wipes a child's face with a rag. The water in the basin beside her is already gray. No one flinches. In another room, someone is dying. You can hear it in the ragged breaths. No doctors, just a candle flickering and someone praying. And yet people joke. They laugh. Kids still play. Lovers still steal glances. Somehow life continues. It's almost beautiful. Until, of course, it isn't. A sudden scream cuts the air. You don't see the source, but the crowd barely reacts. Too common, maybe, or they already know it's not their business. This is a city where tragedies are as regular as tea time. But through it all, one truth keeps slapping you in the face. Literally, with every shift of wind, this is not sustainable. Something has to give. You can feel it, like pressure building behind a dam made of paper. And the dam is cracking. You round a corner and finally see it again, the river, the Thames. Why, majestic, utterly betrayed. It doesn't glisten, it glowers. The water is thick, brown, sluggish. Bubbles rise in places you wish they wouldn't. Floating debris drifts lazily downstream. Bits of wood, cloth, maybe worse. You see a man standing on a makeshift dock, fishing. You want to yell at him. Why? But he just stares into the water like it owes him something. Some historians believe this moment, this buildup of waste, of frustration, of disease, was the tipping point that led to modern sanitation. Others say it was luck, or political pressure, or just the sheer force of stench making the privileged finally take notice. But down here on the ground, among the people who've been living with this all along, none of that matters. What matters is the smell, the silence between coughs, the child with sores on her arms and no clean water to bathe, the chamber pot tipped into the gutter like it's nothing because to them it is nothing. It's life. It's normal. Shouldn't be. And deep inside, you know something is about to change. It has to, because if it doesn't, the stink will win. You trudge forward, past the ramshackle alleys and crumbling brick, the sticky mud sucking at your shoes like it's trying to keep you here. And for a moment, you wonder if that's exactly what London has become. A place that holds tight, pulls you under, and doesn't let go. You're heading toward the factories now, toward progress, or what passes for it, and you feel it before you see it. The air changes, thickens somehow. It's hotter, wetter, and when you glance up, you realize the sky has disappeared entirely beneath a heavy ceiling of smoke. It rolls and churns like boiling tar, spewing from hundreds of chimneys. Iron, brick, soot-stained and endlessly hungry. Welcome to the Industrial Revolution. It's magnificent in the way a wildfire is magnificent. Fast, furious, destructive. And as you walk, you notice the sounds shift too. The rhythmic clank of gears, the hiss of steam, The shout of foremen pushing tired bodies past their limits. Factories churn out cotton, gas, iron, beer. London is the beating heart of empire now, pumping goods and coal smoke across the world. Queen Victoria's Britain runs on this black fog, and no one dares question it. Except maybe you. Because here's the thing. For all its mechanical marvels, the industrial age forgot something fundamental. It forgot the toilet. Sure, it remembered trains and telegraphs and spinning jennies. It even managed to invent a machine that spins 50 threads at once and can kill a man in 2 seconds flat. But a city-wide sewage system? Nah, that's someone else's problem. Instead, it's still chamber pots, buckets, privies, and let's not forget the river. You pass a gasworks now, an enormous, wheezing beast of a building, its metal ribs glowing faintly orange. Workers inside smear coal tar on bricks, while others scrape residue from iron pipes. Fun fringe fact: people once thought coal tar might be good for your skin. There were even ointments made from the stuff. You can almost hear the collective sigh of 21st century dermatologists. You duck down another alley, seeking a shortcut, or maybe just a break from the acrid fog. And it's here, tucked behind a tanner's yard, that you see the real cost of progress. Children, they're sitting on crates, coughing into their sleeves, watching the sky like it might drop soot instead of rain. One girl's hands are stained with dye. Her job is to stir cloth in vats so strong they burn your nostrils. Another boy, no older than 10, has blackened fingernails and a wheezy cough that doesn't sound new. This is what modernization looks like. Not shiny steam engines or polished inventions on display at the Great Exhibition, but exhausted children with no shoes and less hope. Historians still argue whether the benefits of the Industrial Revolution outweighed its human cost. Some call it the birth of the modern world. Others, a machine that devoured lives and spat out coal dust. You keep walking. Further on, you pass a brewery. You'd think it would smell better. Beer after all. But it reeks because brewers often dump their waste into the same open drains that carry everything else. Some even pipe it straight into the Thames. You see a man heaving a barrel onto a wagon, sweat pouring down his back. He pauses, wipes his face, and takes a swig from a brown bottle. Hair of the dog, maybe, or just courage. Another fun tidbit. Some breweries used human waste to speed fermentation. Let that image linger next time you raise a pint. You round a corner and find yourself staring at a public privy. Or rather, what used to be one. The roof's collapsed, and inside is a slurry of waste and rainwater, bubbling like a witch's cauldron. No one goes near it, but someone has scrawled on the brick beside it, in chalk, barely legible. London will choke on its own guts. Poetic, and probably true. Back on the main road, the traffic never stops. Carts rattle by, laden with coal, with bricks, with barrels of something noxious and unlabeled. A stray dog limps across the street, pauses, and laps from a puddle that steams faintly at the edges. You shiver. Up ahead, a crowd gathers near Westminster. Not for a speech, not for a royal parade. They're standing outside Parliament. Inside, politicians are gagging. Literally. The smell has breached even those hallowed halls. You picture dignified men in powdered wigs pressing vinegar-soaked cloths to their noses while arguing over taxes. It'd be funny if it weren't so grotesque. And it's only getting worse. You take one last look back at the neighborhood behind you. At the chimneys, the children, the endless churn of machinery. It's a city racing toward the future with one foot still stuck in a cesspool. And the stink? The stink is coming for everyone. You cross into Westminster with a sense of dread clinging to your skin. Not from fear exactly, but from the air itself, which has taken on the consistency of spoiled stew. It wraps around your face, drips into your lungs, makes your teeth taste metallic. And then you see them, the lawmakers, in powdered wigs and stiff collars, flailing handkerchiefs and flasks of smelling salts. They stagger around the interior of the House of Commons like actors in a tragic farce. You peek through the heavy door. It's ajar, and the scene inside looks like a battlefield of bad decisions and upset stomachs. One gentleman is fanning himself wildly with a parliamentary record. Another is retching into a velvet-lined spittoon, his face the color of ash. A third simply lies flat on a bench, arms splayed, eyes closed, possibly praying for death, possibly just unconscious from the fumes. You don't laugh. You can't. The air is too thick. One breath, and it feels like you've swallowed vinegar, manure, and a faint note of despair. This is not politics as usual. Outside, a clerk mutters, "They tried to soak the curtains in lime." He snorts. "Didn't work. Nothing works." You nod. You've smelled it from the river, from the streets, from the factories. The city is rotting from the inside out, and now, finally, the rot has reached the ruling class. It is, if nothing else, poetic justice, but also potentially salvation. Because here's the thing about people in power. They don't act unless it affects them personally. And now, the smell has slithered past every layer of privilege and perfume, curling its way into the most untouchable spaces in England. The House of Commons, gagging, literally. And here's a historical fact to hang your bonnet on. In the summer of 1858, during what would become known as the Great Stink, members of Parliament seriously considered abandoning Westminster altogether. The smell was that bad. Even the heavy drapes soaked in chloride of lime, the Victorian version of Febreze, couldn't keep it out. You leave the chaos of Parliament behind and head toward the embankment again, passing a group of gentlemen in high collars and cravats arguing over sanitation reform. One slams a newspaper against his thigh. "Public health," he barks. The other scoffs. "Public expense." And there it is, the eternal debate. Historians still argue whether the events of 1858 truly changed political attitudes toward infrastructure, or whether it was all a matter of appearances. Was it moral awakening or olfactory emergency? You follow the scent trail down toward the river, where carts of lime are being dumped into the Thames in an attempt to cleanse it. The result? A frothy, sickly-looking sludge that bubbles at the edges. You pass a sign nailed hastily to a post. "Do not drink the water. Do not bathe in the river. Do not fish near this bridge." Underneath, someone has scribbled, "Do not breathe." You'd laugh, but again, breathing is hazardous. To your left, a newspaper boy holds up a sheet with a grim headline, "The Murderous Miasma." He doesn't shout it, just holds it like a warning flag, his face buried in a damp cloth. You catch a few of the article's words. "Parliament stalls. Cholera fears. Thames a sewer of death." It's not even hyperbole. And the irony? The biggest breakthroughs in germ theory are still decades away from being mainstream. Most officials think the smell itself, this bad air or miasma, is what causes disease. The idea that water might be the culprit? Too revolutionary. And yet, it's in the works. Somewhere nearby, Dr. Jon Snow, no, not the guy from Game of Thrones, is sketching maps and compiling death statistics. You don't meet him here, not yet, but you feel his presence in the shifting winds of logic and science. You pause near a bridge. Below you, the Thames flows or oozes more like. The water is thick with refuse, brown and slow, with the occasional pale lump drifting by. You don't look too closely. A man beside you hawks a tonic, guaranteed to purify the lungs. Breathe deep, friend. You politely decline. As you walk on, past the clusters of desperate lime dumpers and hopeless reformers, the bells of Westminster begin to chime. Not for celebration, not for ceremony, but because time is running out. The stench is no longer confined to the poor. It has climbed the social ladder, clawed into wealth and law and even royalty. Everyone can smell it now. And maybe, just maybe, that means something will change. Because the stink has done what no revolution could. It's united a divided city under one shared, terrible breath. You drift down an alley that shouldn't exist. One of those crooked gaps between buildings where the bricks lean in too close, like they're gossiping. It's quieter here, damp, but not quiet enough to drown the distant sound of church bells tolling for the dead. Because people are dying, more than you can count. And while the smell of the Thames grabs all the headlines, there's another killer stalking the streets. Cholera. You don't see it, of course. Nobody does. That's part of the terror. But you do see the aftermath. The pale little boy slumped in his mother's lap on the stoop. His lips cracked, skin paper thin. The way she rocks him back and forth, as if rhythm alone could resurrect him. You look away. Too late. That image is lodged behind your eyes now. Down the next street, a pair of undertakers pass you, pushing a cart that creaks with weight. The tarp covering it flaps briefly in the wind, revealing bare feet, 3 sets motionless. You breathe through your mouth. Not that it helps. There are chalk excess on the doors here. Black sashes tied to lampposts. Makeshift shrines of wildflowers and candles melting into puddles of wax and grief. And here comes the irony. Everyone thinks it's the smell that's doing this. The bad air. The miasma. That's why they're hanging up lavender sachets in the windows and stuffing oranges with cloves. That's why people are buying vinegar-soaked rags and eucalyptus tinctures from back-alley hucksters. You pass a stall selling anti-cholera amulets and another advertising throat lozenges of health. None of it works. Not really, because the killer isn't in the air. It's in the water. But you don't know that yet. Most people don't. Then, just as you're about to turn the corner, you see a man standing in the street, scribbling in a notebook, thin, serious. He pauses to wipe his glasses, then marks something on a map. This is Dr. John Snow, not a hero in a cape, not even recognized yet, just a physician with a hunch and the stubbornness to test it. He believes that cholera spreads through contaminated water, not bad air, that people are dying because they're drinking from infected pumps and wells, not because they're breathing in the stink. And in 1854, just a few years earlier, he actually proved it, sort of. He traced an outbreak to a single water pump on Broad Street, had the handle removed, cases plummeted, but still, people weren't ready to believe him. The miasma theory was too strong, too ingrained. Historians still argue whether Snow's intervention truly ended the outbreak, or whether it was already dying out, whether his famous map marked the beginning of modern epidemiology, or was just an elegant coincidence. But the story sticks, because sometimes truth is a whisper in a hurricane. You walk behind Snow for a while, watching him pin little black dots onto his map, each one a death. It looks like a disease constellation, a star chart of suffering. You wonder if anyone will believe him this time. Maybe, maybe not. You pass a row of posters nailed to a boarded-up shop. Wash your clothes. Boil your water. Trust the Lord. 2 out of 3 isn't bad. You hear coughing behind a curtain. See a man pour brown water from a tin cup and drink it anyway. He has no choice. The pump is all he's got. The city has pumped millions of gallons of raw sewage directly into the Thames. And then it pulls its drinking water from the same place. It's a vicious circle of filth. You walk toward one of the water companies. Yes, private companies, and see barrels marked potable. You don't believe them, not for a second. Inside, you glimpse a man in a top hat sipping from a glass, nose wrinkled, but pride intact. He doesn't trust snow either. Most of the water board thinks cholera is just one of those unfortunate things. Still, some are starting to shift. Murmurs of reform ripple through the ranks. The idea that maybe, just maybe, they should stop dumping human waste where people drink. Revolutionary, right? Outside again, the breeze changes. It carries the scent of overripe fruit, stagnant puddles, and fear. You follow it into a chapel, where the pews are filled not with worshippers, but with the sick and dying. Makeshift cots line the aisles. A priest offers last rites to a girl no older than 7. You sit for a moment. The wood beneath you is warm. Someone hands you a damp cloth for your face. You don't speak. No one does. There's nothing to say. Just breathe. Try to stay upright. And listen for the sound of the pump handle finally breaking loose from public denial. It hasn't happened yet, but it's coming. You can feel it. You emerge from the chapel and step back into the muggy gloom, where the scent of rot is somehow heavier now, thicker. You breathe in through your nose and instantly regret it. It clings to your nostrils like a wet cloth soaked in spoiled milk and river mud. The Thames is just ahead, but you already know that your body told you before your eyes could confirm it. Every step closer makes your stomach clench a little tighter. Your boots squelch in the sludge caking the riverbank. You can see the outline of the embankment through the haze, but most of the water is hidden beneath a kind of oily film. It ripples, sluggish and unnatural. It's not really water anymore. It's a soup, a deadly, fetid broth. The current barely moves, thick with the weight of a million flushes, dumps, and discards. London has turned its most sacred river into a graveyard. And now, standing here, you watch the corpses float by. Not human, not today at least. Just swollen fish with vacant eyes and distended bellies. Bloated dogs. Rats that once survived anything until this. Sometimes, if you look long enough, you start imagining other shapes beneath the surface. Things the river might be hiding. Rumors say people dump bodies here. Not just victims of cholera, but of desperation, of murder, of despair. You're not sure what to believe, but one thing is certain. This river is no longer a lifeline. It's a ribbon of death, and it runs straight through the heart of London. You walk the edge of it, stepping over crates and broken glass and what looks suspiciously like a human tooth. At a bend in the path, you come across a boy sitting with a fishing rod. The line is limp, his bait untouched. You ask him why he's here. He shrugs and says, "Still better than going home." You keep moving, past a group of women with baskets on their hips, trying to wash linen in the brown froth. Past a man in a cart tipping barrels into the water, barrels labeled household slops. No one stops him. No one even looks. In the distance, across the bank, someone's burning old shoes to keep away the stench. It smells worse than before, char and rubber and filth. But you don't cover your nose anymore. What would be the point? You think of the Thames as it used to be. Clean, fresh, dotted with little boats, children laughing on its shores. But you weren't here for that. You've only heard stories, seen faded paintings in a dusty gallery. Now, the river carries none of that memory, just detritus, decay, and the occasional floating chicken carcass. Some people still drink from it, not directly, of course, but indirectly, through poorly filtered pipes, through wells drilled too close to the edge, through the blind faith that God wouldn't let water kill us. Historians still argue whether the stench alone drove change, or whether it was the optics, the newspaper stories, the sudden deaths of just enough rich people to shake Parliament. But whatever the reason, the stinking river is no longer ignorable. You reach a point where the river's edge disappears into what looks like a ditch, except it bubbles. A thick layer of something black and gelatinous coats the surface. Nearby, children are poking it with sticks. You ask one of them what they're doing. "We're naming the blobs," one says cheerfully. "That one's Queen Vic. That one's Sir Smells a Lot." You chuckle. You weren't expecting to laugh. Still, even children find ways to adapt. You watch as a woman steps into the water up to her ankles, lifts her skirts, and wades out to retrieve something. A dropped parcel or maybe a scrap of cloth. She walks out again, casually, wringing out her skirts. You wonder how long until her feet blister. Or worse, you take a seat on a crumbling stone step that leads into the water and let yourself rest. The sound here is strange. There are no birds. There should be gulls or pigeons or at least the caw of a crow. But even they know better. The river has driven out more than just humans. It's pushed away life itself. Behind you, the city hums. Carts roll over cobblestones. Boots click. A bell tolls again. But down here by the water, time slows. Everything rots. And you can't help but wonder, what did the river do to deserve this? Once it brought trade, nourishment, beauty. Now it brings disease, death, and shame. A boat floats by, low in the water. No sails, just cargo. You don't want to know what's in it. So you close your eyes and imagine what this place smelled like before the stink. Before the flush toilets that flushed nowhere. Before industry and overflow and neglect. Before humans stopped caring about what they left behind. You sit in the silence, such as it is, and the river just flows, or oozes, or sighs, and somewhere beneath the surface, something pops. You follow the road uphill now, away from the river's sorrowful edge. But it follows you. Not the water, no, that would require movement. Just the smell. That warm, ripe wall of it clings to your clothes, your skin, your very soul. Even now, up in the wealthier part of town, the stench creeps through the lace-trimmed curtains and ivory-paneled carriages. You pass a flower seller dabbing her upper lip with a perfumed kerchief. She's not fooling anyone. The roses have surrendered, and then you hear it. The clop of hooves, the creak of wheels, the rustle of velvet. You step aside just in time as a polished black carriage sweeps past, drawn by white horses too proud to look down. Inside, yes, that's her, Queen Victoria herself, perched stiffly behind the glass like a painting come to life, her face pale and pinched. She's not waving today. She doesn't even pretend to look interested in the crowds or the city she rules. Her hand is pressed against her nose, glove white and trembling. For one terrifying moment, she looks like she might faint. You almost hope she does, because maybe then, maybe finally, someone at the very top will understand that something has gone deeply wrong in the kingdom of steam and soot and sewage. Of course, she doesn't faint. Royals are trained not to, but she does lean sharply to the side, whispering something to her aide. He nods. The carriage turns the corner faster than seems proper. And just like that, the royal nose has spoken. Within days, the funding begins to move. Slowly at first, like cold molasses. But Parliament has smelled what the people have smelled for years. And it turns out even aristocrats have gag reflexes. One MP actually vomited mid-session, which you'd think might be decorum-breaking. But it only sped things up. Newspapers published it. Children reenacted it. The cartoonists had a field day. Still, nothing moves without money. And money follows power. And power follows a queen with a very offended nose. You walk past the Houses of Parliament again. This time, there are workmen hammering shutters across the windows. Not for security, but to keep the air out. Inside, they're soaking curtains in lime water and hanging them like makeshift gas masks. A man coughs violently near the front gate. You ask him what he does here. "Clerk," he says between hacks. "I write things." "What kind of things?" "Bills, laws, proposals, obituaries lately." He chuckles darkly and offers you a vinegar-soaked rag. "Better than nothing," he says. You take it, hold it to your nose. It is better than nothing, but not by much. You head toward a government building where clerks are scuttling like rats, delivering memos about sewage. Not war, not trade, not even taxes. Sewage. This is what the empire has come to, and thank goodness for that. You pass a group of architects unfolding scrolls on the steps. Lines, diagrams, circles upon circles. One mutters, "We'll have to tunnel under half the city." Another sighs, "God help us if it rains again." You stop to peer over their shoulders. The plans look like nervous handwriting. One name stands out at the bottom, Joseph Bazalgette. You'll meet him soon. But first, the Queen's carriage has reappeared. Only this time it's parked. You stand among a small crowd watching as Queen Victoria descends, aided by her stiff-lipped attendants. She holds a parasol, though the sun is meek today. Her steps are precise, deliberate. She doesn't trip, doesn't flinch. But she does pause. Right there, at the edge of the embankment, she lifts her chin and surveys the Thames. She says nothing, but her nostrils twitch, and that twitch, believe it or not, will change London forever. You never knew so much could hinge on a queen's olfactory nerves. Did you? There's some debate, of course. Historians still argue whether this moment was truly the tipping point. Was it the Queen, or the daily deaths, or the sheer economic cost of a city too sick to function? But standing here, watching that parasol rise and fall with each slow breath, you start to believe in the power of symbols. And this one smells terrible. You follow the smell of ink now. It's faint, hidden beneath the stink of human waste and horse manure. But it's there, wafting up from paper-strewn desks deep in the heart of a small, candlelit office. You step softly over cracked floorboards. You hear coughing, sighs, the sound of a quill scratching in bursts, followed by silence, followed by another scratch. And then a name is muttered under breath. Bazalgette, Joseph Bazalgette, a civil engineer with a name as heavy as his task. You find him hunched over a table, sleeves rolled up, collar limp with sweat. He's youngish but already graying. Not because of age, because of London. He doesn't look up when you enter. He's too busy trying to save the city. His fingers trace the ink lines of a sewer network so massive it looks like a map of veins inside a dragon. Interconnected tunnels, rising mains, pumping stations, overflow pipes, all designed to carry London's filth away. Not just away from the Thames, but away from the people. Away from the babies dying of cholera. Away from Parliament's vinegar rags. Away from Queen Victoria's royal nose. and you realize something strange. No trumpets will sound for this man. No portraits in grand halls. He doesn't ride a horse or lead an army or wear medals across his chest. He just works, day and night, drawing, redrawing, calculating flow rates and pipe gradients with a pencil worn down to a nub. He is, quite literally, designing salvation. But no one claps. Not yet. He rubs his eyes, sighs, mutters numbers to himself, then reaches for another parchment. This one stained at the edges with what looks like tea, but might be something worse. The city keeps collapsing, and Joseph keeps building. Outside, you hear shouting. A messenger bangs open the door and tosses a stack of petitions onto the desk. Bazalgette barely blinks. One falls to the floor. You pick it up and read the opening line. The people of Southwark, being most afflicted by odors. It goes on for paragraphs. Desperation in ink. Requests for relief. Begging almost. You fold it gently and place it back on the pile. Bazalgette gives you a tired smile, then turns back to his drawing. He knows the math isn't enough. He knows what he's building has to last. Because London is still growing. Faster than ever. Swelling with industry, immigrants, smog, and soup. And if this system fails, if even one pipe bursts or floods, it won't just be a bad smell. It'll be a catastrophe. You lean closer. His design is beautiful. That's not a word people usually use for sewers. But this is architectural poetry. Arches shaped to resist collapse. Brickwork planned like cathedral ribs. Flow rates calculated to self-clean without clogging. Bazalgette isn't just building a sewer. He's building a legacy. There's a saying in the engineering world, unfair, but true, that no one notices you unless something breaks. And that's what haunts him. His face is calm, but behind those eyes is the quiet dread of someone who knows he'll only be remembered if this fails. Historians still argue whether Bazalgette really understood the full scope of what he was doing. Did he see this as a temporary fix? A political bandage? Or did he know he was reshaping the city from its bowels up? Either way, the results would be extraordinary. You watch as he straightens up, stretches his arms like a man surfacing from a dream, then walks to the window. Outside, the city coughs. Inside, he scribbles again. He's not alone, of course. There are teams, surveyors, masons, builders, but he is the spine, the compass, the quiet voice saying, we can make this work when the money dries up, when the walls collapse, when Parliament forgets again why they even hired him. Someone knocks gently on the door. It's his assistant. Sir, the boy says, they're ready at the riverfront. Bazalgette nods, rolls up his blueprints with care. He tucks them under his arm and turns toward the door. For a moment, he stops beside you, and though he can't see you, it feels like he does. Like he's saying, this is for all of us. And then he's gone, boots thudding down the stairs, into the stink and the squalor. Back to where the city needs him most. You stay behind. The room smells of ink and hope. You trail him now, not in his office, not with blueprints, but down in the muck, where his dreams get carved into the bones of the city. You follow Joseph Bazalgette to the edge of a trench. And what a trench it is. It stretches for miles, ripped through the belly of London like a jagged wound. On either side, workers move like ants, small, fast, burdened. Their boots slap against wooden planks laid across black mud. Their shoulders bear bricks, lime, shovels. Their backs bend like reeds. You hear no shouting, just the low hum of exhaustion, the kind of silence that comes from men too tired to complain. You descend slowly. The stench is overpowering. You thought the Thames was bad? Try being inside it, not beside it, inside. This isn't just digging. This is exorcism. London's filth isn't just being moved. It's being banished, brick by cursed brick. The workers build in pairs. One lays mortar, the other sets bricks in quick rhythm, like beating a drum. The arch begins to curve overhead. One brick slips, curse muttered. Another worker coughs, leans against the wall, and retches into his sleeve. The tunnel is rising, and you, strangely, feel pride. You watch a man lower a candle into a darkened shaft. Its glow reveals a finished section of tunnel, a gleaming brick pipe, tall enough for you to walk through without ducking, perfectly curved, perfectly sealed. This, you realize, is one of the great human cathedrals. Not for gods, for waste, for survival, for us. Bazalgette walks past the men, murmuring praise. His eyes never stop scanning. Slope too steep, brickwork too wet, water trickling where it shouldn't. Every problem is his problem, and there are many. A pipe burst 2 days ago in Lambeth. A tunnel near Southwark caved in. The mortar shipment to Chelsea arrived half-frozen. And the rains, oh, the rains, have turned parts of the site into lakes of filth. The workers call it the stew. No one wants to know what's in it, but still they dig, because time is against them. The summer is coming, and with it heat, and with heat, the stink. Historians still argue whether Parliament truly believed in this project, or if they were just desperate to stop gagging during debates. But Bazalgette believed. That's what matters. And now he has a team, underpaid, overworked, but loyal, because they know what they're doing isn't just for today. It's forever. You meet a bricklayer named Tom. He's 22 but looks 40. His hands are raw, his fingernails gone, but he smiles as he works. Better here than in the tannery, he says. You ask why. 'Cause here it's just shit. There it's acid. Fair enough. Later you pass a team mixing mortar by hand. The rhythm is hypnotic. Slosh, mix, slosh, mix. One man adds horsehair. Another adds crushed brick. Makes it breathe, he says, tapping the paste. Nearby, a child, no more than 12, delivers tea. He's covered in soot and snot, but cheerful. They call me Rat, he grins, 'cause I'm fast in tunnels. You laugh, then pause. He's really fast in tunnels. Too fast. He slips down a narrow shaft barely wide enough for your shoulders. Candle in one hand, biscuit in the other. Smells better down here than my mum's flat, he calls back. Probably true. As you crawl behind him, you begin to see just how deep this thing goes. London isn't being repaired. It's being rebuilt. From the inside out. And nobody sees it. No parades. No headlines. Just dirt and dark and the occasional tea break. You finally emerge from the shaft into a wider chamber. Here you see the future. A pumping station under construction. Giant iron wheels lie idle, waiting to be assembled. Steel girders glint in candlelight. Somewhere above, a factory bell rings. Bazalgette arrives minutes later. He inspects the foundation, talks to an engineer about flood levels, makes a joke. Something about politicians being full of more crap than these pipes. The workers laugh. Genuinely. Then he's gone again. Always moving. Always calculating. This city will not defeat him. You climb out of the trench just as rain begins to fall. Light at first, then heavier. The men groan but don't stop. They just wrap cloth around their heads and keep going. There's no time to pause, because if they don't finish this, you already know what happens. You've smelled it. lived it, and you're not going back. You don't have to go far to find the strange side effects of a city drowning in its own waste. You step out of the trench. The rain has slowed, but the air feels like it's been steeped in a hot, meaty broth. You wrinkle your nose and follow a different sort of scent. Still foul, but warmer, tangier, almost yeasty. You're heading to the breweries. Yes, breweries. Because in Victorian London, you can brew beer with almost anything, including water siphoned from the Thames, even if it's full of stuff better left unnamed. You slip into a side street near Southwark. The brewery doors are open, barrels rolled across muddy floors, and inside, the scent of hops battles valiantly against the background stench. A worker nods at you, then lifts a steaming vat lid. The steam smells oddly familiar. That's because it's not just hops and barley. It's human wastewater, recycled, distilled, purified allegedly. You watch a brewer toss in a handful of crushed juniper. Covers the tang, he says with a shrug. Historians still argue whether these breweries truly knew the full horror of what was in their water, or if they just didn't care. Either way, the beer kept flowing, and people kept drinking it because it was safer than the water. Well, usually, you leave before your stomach turns. Down the lane, brickmakers line their kilns with night soil, the polite term for dried excrement, collected by the nightmen, stacked like firewood, and burned to fuel the fires that bake London's homes. You can almost admire the efficiency. Almost. You pass a brick stamped with a thumbprint and wonder, whose was it? Some tired man with cracked hands, working 12 hours a day just to feed his kids gruel? That thumbprint becomes a fossil of desperation. Further on, the tanner's yard assaults your nose. This time, the stench is not subtle. Animal hides, soaked in urine, pounded flat by barefoot men with wooden mallets. The hides are scraped, stretched, then reeked into leather. The workers here have gone mostly nose-blind. One man laughs when you gag. That's the smell of London pride, mate, he says, wiping his hands on a tunic so stained it might have once been white. Next door, a soap maker stirs a massive pot with a bone-white paddle. The soap? Made with rendered fat from slaughterhouses, and sometimes, rumor has it, more questionable sources. You touch a finished bar. Slick, almost soft. You put it down quickly. At the end of the row, you duck into a public bathhouse. The tiles are slippery, the air humid, and the patrons, well, they're not here for hygiene alone. The bathwater is warm, gray, and full of things best ignored. A man beside you dunks his head. When he comes up, he says, "First bath in a month." You blink. He grins. And this one smells better than the last. Progress, perhaps. You wander back out into the street and think. This city runs on waste. It fuels fires, fills bricks, scrubs backs, brews beer. Everything London builds, boils, or bathes seems somehow linked to the same endless, putrid stream of filth. It's not hidden. It's not avoided. It's used. And yet, everyone still acts surprised when they get sick. Back in the alley, a chimney sweep, no older than 10, tells you about a ghost girl who haunts the bathhouse. Says she drowned in a tub of reused water and now rattles the pipes at night. He tells it like a joke, but you notice he doesn't go near the place. Quirky, perhaps, or just another tale told to make sense of a world no one really understands. You pass a doctor treating rashes with mercury, a butcher washing knives in gutter runoff, a milkman watering down his pails with Thames water, claiming it's the freshest there is. And yet, life continues. Londoners somehow adapt. They wear perfume-soaked handkerchiefs. They eat pickled onions to block out the taste of the air. One woman smears lavender oil under her nose before stepping outside. Another carries a sprig of mint and offers you one. You accept it gratefully. The mint is crushed, wilted, and faint. But for a moment the stink recedes. You smile. Then the wind shifts, and it's back. London in 1858 isn't just a city. It's a factory of filth. A machine that takes in clean things and turns them into rot, and somehow convinces people to build fortunes from it. And you're starting to understand why Bazalgette fights so hard. Because the city isn't just broken. It's profiting from the problem. And fixing it means disrupting all this thriving, stinking business. You take a final look at the soap maker, the brewer, the tanner. All of them elbow deep in the byproduct of humanity. Then you hear a voice behind you. Storm's coming. A worker points up. The clouds are darker than before. You feel the first drops hit your face. And deep below the city, the tunnels wait. The clouds do not hesitate. Within moments, the sky is a slate of weeping lead. Rain begins to pummel the cobblestones. Not politely, not gradually, no. Comes like punishment. Cold, relentless, immediate. You duck beneath a crooked awning as water sluices down the rooftops in brownish sheets. What's pouring from the sky is not just rain. It's runoff, collected from soot-black chimneys and bird-shat gutters. Tastes like rust. It smells like regret. London in the rain is a different kind of monster. Sewers overflow within minutes. You step back just as a drain belches up what it should be swallowing. The street becomes a slow, swirling stew of everything the city tried to hide. Rotten food, dead rats, chunks of coal, and human waste bob past your boots like unwanted gifts. And still, it keeps raining. You head toward one of the new sewer construction sites, tucked behind a churchyard. There, under layers of mud and noise, men are working in the storm, or trying to. A foreman yells over the clatter, waving a battered cap at you. You looking for shelter or damnation? He asks with a smile that's more teeth than warmth. You nod and step down into the trench. The air here is thicker. Wet clay clings to your boots. Wooden braces groan under the pressure of soaked earth. You follow a worker named Ellis. He's soaked through, shirt transparent, hands trembling around a lantern. This tunnel was near collapse last night, he says, voice hushed. One more heavy rain and he doesn't finish, just gestures to the wall. You place your hand against it. The stone feels warm, too warm. Water trickles through a hairline crack. Not good. The new sewers are an architectural marvel, designed by Bazalgette with an almost obsessive precision. Egg-shaped tunnels for optimal flow, Portland cement for strength, bricks set with perfect symmetry. But nature doesn't care about symmetry. Not when the city's bowels are already swollen past capacity. Above, the streets are chaos. Horses panic in the muck. Carriages tip sideways. People shout, then slip, then fall. Some don't get back up. A boy loses his shoe and cries like it's the end of the world, because for him, maybe it is. At the edge of the trench, engineers huddle under oilskins. Maps turn to pulp in their hands. One argues that they should abandon this section. Another insists they reinforce it. Bazalgette isn't here, but his spirit hangs over them like a stern ghost with a slide rule. A decision is made. Reinforce. You help pass bricks. 1, 2, 10. Your arms ache. You've never laid a wall before, but today you do. Mortar splashes into your eyes. You blink through the sting. The crack widens. Someone screams. A section of tunnel gives way, not here, but close. The sound is unmistakable. A wet snap, like bones breaking inside a whale. Earth shifts. Everyone freezes. And then, silence. Just for a heartbeat. You exhale. The wall holds. Barely. You back away slowly, knees shaking, heart pounding in your ears. You sit down on a heap of sandbags and stare at your mud-streaked hands. London is cracking beneath itself, and the rain isn't letting up. One of the engineers lights a pipe with trembling fingers. He offers you a puff. You decline. Used to be, he says, a man could ignore the stink, walk fast enough and you'd outrun it. Not anymore. The rain's rhythm softens. The storm, for now, has spent itself. You crawl back out of the trench, blinking against the watery gray light. The streets look like a battlefield. A man rows a bathtub down Fleet Street. A group of boys cheer as they float a dead pig past a tea shop. Life somehow keeps pretending to be normal. You pass a laundress wringing out rags in a puddle and humming. A little rain is just the city's way of washing its sins, she says. You try to smile. You fail, because you know the truth. This rain doesn't wash sins. It just spreads them. One sewer wall, somewhere in the maze below, still groans. If it breaks, whole neighborhoods will drown not in water, but in everything worse. And no one above seems to notice. They go back to their pubs, their soup stalls, their fish carts. But you keep walking, toward the embankment, toward the edge of something. The stink hasn't lifted. Not yet. But something else is shifting. Not just in the pipes, in people. You pass a poster on a wall. Support the new sewers. Save our city. Handwritten beneath it, or choke trying. You pause, then walk on, because the story isn't done. The stink hasn't died yet, but it will. And when it does, you want to be there to breathe the silence. The air tastes different. You don't notice it at first. It's subtle, like a skipped beat, a missing note in a long, dissonant chord. You're standing at the edge of the Thames, again, same place you've stood a dozen times before. The same place you once gagged at the smell of the river. But today, you sniff, then again. Tolerable. No, more than tolerable. It's almost clean. You glance around like someone's playing a joke. You half expect a fishmonger to emerge from the fog waving a bucket of entrails, or a barge to pass belching smoke and rotten cargo. But none come. It's eerily still. The kind of stillness that doesn't happen in London. Not even at dawn. Especially not by the river. You look down. The water, still murky, still no one's idea of pristine, is at least moving. It flows, sluggish but steady, and the oily scum that once blanketed its surface has thinned. It's not perfume, but it's not poison either. And that, in this city, is a miracle. Word spreads quickly. By the time you reach Westminster, the whispers have grown. The stink is gone. People speak it aloud the way they once said cholera. Softly, cautiously, as if to name it might bring it back. Shopkeepers throw open windows. Housewives beat rugs with a kind of giddy vengeance. Even Parliament breathes easier. The vinegar-soaked curtains have been removed. A clerk tells you he's considering eating lunch outside. You nearly faint. There's laughter in the air now, too. Nervous, brittle, but real. A boy chases his sister across a puddle without retching. A dog rolls in the mud. Not the dangerous kind, just regular, honest, rain-drenched earth. You spot Bazalgette again, or rather, his coat disappearing into a doorway. He's not celebrating. Not yet. Not until he's sure. You don't blame him. You aren't sure either. But then you pass a spot you remember well. Last time you could smell it from 30 feet away. The drain outside the butcher shop, where fat and offal pooled with rainwater and human waste, swirling into a cauldron of misery. It was unforgettable. Now, nothing. You bend down cautiously. Breathe. Still nothing. You laugh. Actually laugh. A constable raises an eyebrow but says nothing. People are noticing one by one. It's like spring in reverse. Not the return of birds and blossoms, but the departure of flies, the vanishing of death from the air. And the Thames, she seems grateful. Boats return. Small ones at first. Fishermen, fools, the brave and the desperate. A man stands with a pole near Blackfriars and swears he saw an eel. You're not sure if that's encouraging or terrifying. For the first time, there's talk of using the river again. Not just enduring it. There's even a rumor, madness, surely, that someone took a swim. But the truly surreal moment comes when you spot a couple sitting on a bench by the embankment. Eating sandwiches by the river. Feels like a hallucination. You stare and the woman catches your eye. She raises her bread in a mock toast. Bit nicer today, isn't it? You nod, dumbfounded. The man chuckles. Took a plague and a half to get here, but I'll take it. A vendor sells roasted chestnuts nearby. The smoke curls upward, unobstructed by the usual miasma. The sky is clearer, too. Coincidence? Maybe, but it's hard not to feel like the city itself is sighing with relief. That night, you walk the streets without holding your breath. You pass the tenements and notice open windows. You pass the factories and see workers lingering outside. Even the dogs seem calmer. You reach the embankment again. Same spot. You sit. And you wait. The stink is truly, finally, gone. At least for now. You close your eyes and listen. No gagging. No hacking. No cries of disgust. Just the low hum of the city sleeping easier. A quiet victory, born of brick and stubbornness. London has buried its filth, literally and metaphorically. And you get to breathe. You wake to birdsong, actual birdsong, not the screech of carts or the hacking of lungs or the drone of despair, but birds, singing. Somewhere above the soot-caked chimneys, a sparrow dares a tune. You smile before your eyes even open. When you rise and walk the morning streets, they feel almost unfamiliar, like someone took London apart while you slept and reassembled it. Still jagged, still chaotic, but somehow gentler. A little less angry. The city didn't just survive the great stink. It changed. The scent of rot no longer clings to every surface. Cobblestones feel less slippery, less haunted. The air doesn't carry death in its breath. But you know better than to think it's all fixed. You round a corner and pass an old woman scrubbing her doorstep, vigorously, relentlessly. You nod. She nods back without pausing. You can see it in her eyes. This isn't over. Because healing is messy. A city can clean its streets faster than it can clean its memory. Inside the public baths, steam still curls around silent men. They soak, not just in water, but in the luxury of being able to breathe. You hear a man mutter, "Feels like living again," as if he's surprised by the sensation. Some shops remain boarded up. Some windows still hold black crepe. Grief doesn't vanish like a foul smell. It lingers in corners, behind curtains, beneath fingernails. You pass a graveyard, fresh soil, names etched by trembling hands. You pause, pay silent respects to people who didn't live to smell the clean air. Some things were saved. Some were not. The city's soul is stitched back together, but the seams are raw. You see Bazalgette again, finally. He's standing on the embankment, hands on hips, staring at the river like it owes him rent. And in a way, it does. He nods to you. You nod back. Neither of you speaks. What is there to say? London is still here, but it's not the same London. Historians still argue whether this moment was a turning point or a pause, whether the Great Stink forced true reform or just temporarily masked a deeper rot. You look around. Feels like both. The city has emerged from its fever, but the scars remain. In policy, in plumbing, in the way people wrinkle their noses at even the faintest hint of decay. In a tannery down by Southwark, workers haul waste into a newer, deeper drain. One of them jokes, "At least it's going somewhere now." You don't laugh. Not because it's not funny, but because it is, and you're too tired to decide if that's hopeful or tragic. In pubs, old men tell tales of the smell that once ruled their lives. Some exaggerate, some don't need to. There's one near Whitechapel who swears he can still smell it when the wind's just right. You believe him. Memory has a scent, too. Children play near the water now. Parents don't flinch. That alone feels revolutionary. You watch a boy skip a stone and wonder what kind of future he'll inherit. Cleaner, hopefully, but cities are like people, capable of change, but prone to relapse. The pipes below your feet gurgle softly, a reminder that they carry both salvation and the seeds of future disaster. Still, you walk on. You find your way to a bridge, one that didn't exist before the stink. One built as part of London's recovery. From here, the Thames looks almost peaceful. Almost. You lean on the railing and look down. The water flows, not fast, not clear, but forward. And maybe that's enough. The embankment beneath your feet vibrates faintly with the hum of a city that has, for now, caught its breath. You sit. No rush. The stone is warm from the late afternoon sun, the kind of sun London doesn't often share so freely, as if the city itself is still getting used to the idea of being clean again. The breeze carries no scent of sewage, no hint of decay, just the river, distant coal smoke, and something new, hope perhaps, or whatever's closest to it after years of breathing through a handkerchief soaked in vinegar. Below, the silent tunnels Bazalgette carved out of dirt and despair are still flowing, still doing their job. It's hard to imagine the same city that once choked on its own filth now boasts one of the most ambitious public health triumphs in history. Harder still to believe it was all nearly derailed by politics, apathy, and the simple human talent for ignoring what stinks. You reach down and touch the stonework. Smooth, solid, a foundation that wasn't just built with brick and mortar, but with desperation and urgency. You think of the workers, exhausted, soot-faced, coughing up years of sewage-drenched breath. Their names lost to history, but not their labor. They built this, and now you sit above it, sipping from a paper cup that didn't exist in their time, watching a sky they fought for without knowing it. You wonder how many lives were saved. Tens of thousands? Millions over time? Historians still argue whether the Great Stink alone spurred all the reform, or if it was just the most pungent straw on the camel's back. Does it matter? The city changed. That's fact enough. Nearby, a street performer plays a soft tune on a violin. Children giggle on the grass. Lovers walk hand in hand. Past public toilets. Thank you very much. The irony doesn't escape you. London's salvation began with sewage, and here it is now, more romantic than ruinous. But deep down, beneath the bricks, below the rails, under every market and mansion, the pipes still run, carrying the weight of waste and memory alike. You think of the river, the rot, the royal noses wrinkled in disgust. You think of Dr. Snow's maps, of Queen Victoria's faint, of the soundless groan of Parliament as it tried to debate above a tide of stench. And you smile. London didn't die. It adapted. And for all the smells, for all the filth and death, that might be the most remarkable thing of all. You rise. The sun is low now, brushing the tops of chimneys with gold. You walk slowly toward the edge of the bridge, toward the final patch of shade, and look down once more at the Thames. Still murky, still moving, but for the first time in memory, not terrifying. And that, you think, is enough for one night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into the end of tonight's journey together. So you made it, through the muck, through the stink, through the slums and sewers and sorrow and steam. You stood with the workers as they dug tunnels into history. You smelled the air shift. You watched a city on the brink pull itself back with brick and willpower. Now just listen. The river flows quietly. The cobblestones are cool beneath your feet. A lantern glows softly in a window across the street. Someone closes a door gently, locking away the day. The fog rolls in, not the poisonous kind, but the storybook kind, the kind that makes everything blur just enough to feel like a memory. You lie down, in your mind or maybe just in spirit, a feather bed, not straw, not damp cloth, but something soft, safe. The smell isn't sour. It's lavender, maybe lemon. A breeze moves the curtain. You breathe in. The pipes hum underneath, but they're not a threat anymore. They're a lullaby, a rhythm, a promise that things don't always have to stay broken. London sleeps, so can you. The story will still be here tomorrow. And until then, you're safe, warm, and thank goodness finally clean. Good night.